said we are full. I don't care what time your reservation was, you are not coming in dressed like that.
How dare you?
We are leaving immediately, and you will hear from us.
It was supposed to be a simple anniversary dinner, but the moment Omar and his family stepped into the golden light of the Heritage Bistro, the air turned cold. They had a reservation, they had the right clothes, and they had the money. But within 5 minutes, they were being shown the door. Little did the crowd know, this wasn't just a case of a rude manager. What the owner was about to confess would leave every diner in tears.
Omar was a man who built bridges, literally. As a senior structural engineer in London, he spent his days ensuring that massive steel structures could withstand the strongest winds. He was patient, soft-spoken, and had a smile that could calm a storm. But tonight, as he stood in the foyer of the city's most exclusive restaurant with his wife Zara and their 6-year-old daughter Layla, his strength was being tested in a way no blueprint could prepare him for. Zara wore a vibrant silk hijab that matched the embroidery on her dress. She looked elegant, but to the hostess behind the mahogany podium, she looked like an inconvenience. "I'm sorry," the hostess said, her eyes not once meeting Omar's. "We seem to have lost your reservation, and we are fully booked for the evening." Omar frowned politely. "That's strange. I have the confirmation right here on my phone. Table for 3, 7:30 p.m. under the name Omar Khan." The hostess didn't even look at the screen. "Systems glitch, I suppose. There's a burger joint 2 blocks down. They don't require reservations." But as Omar began to turn away, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Just as the hostess was dismissing them, a man in a sharp suit walked in. "Reservation for Miller?" he asked. The hostess beamed, her face transforming into a mask of pure hospitality. "Right this way, Mr. Miller. We have your favorite table by the window ready." Omar froze. The injustice wasn't subtle, it was a physical weight in the room. He felt Layla's small hand tighten around his fingers. She was looking up at him, her eyes wide with a question she was too young to have to ask. "Why are we different?" "Excuse me," Omar said, his voice dropping an octave, gaining the resonant authority he used on construction sites. "You just said you were fully booked. That gentleman didn't even show a confirmation." The hostess's smile vanished. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're making the other guests uncomfortable." The restaurant went quiet. The clinking of silverware stopped. Dozens of eyes were now fixed on the family. Some diners looked away in shame, but others, including a group of loud businessmen at the bar, began to snicker. "Maybe they're looking for the prayer hall, not the dining room," one whispered. Now, you won't believe what happened when the kitchen doors swung open. The heavy oak doors to the kitchen burst open. A man in his late 60s, Mr. Sterling, stepped out. He was known as a titan of the local culinary scene, stern, wealthy, and supposedly traditional. The hostess straightened her vest, pointing at Omar. "Mr. Sterling, I was just handling this. These people were insisting on a table we don't have." Mr. Sterling walked slowly toward Omar. The tension was thick enough to cut with a steak knife. He looked at Zara's hijab, then at Omar's face, and finally down at little Layla. "Is there a problem here?" Sterling asked, his voice raspy. "We had a reservation," Omar said, maintaining eye contact. "We were told there was a glitch, then we watched you seat someone else. We are happy to leave, but I want my daughter to hear you say the real reason why we aren't being served." The businessmen at the bar laughed. "Give it a rest, buddy. Go somewhere you fit in." But then, Mr. Sterling did something that silenced the entire restaurant. He didn't point toward the door, he pointed toward the bar. "Hold on, the story takes a turn right here that no one saw coming." "You," Mr. Sterling said, pointing at the man who had made the prayer hall comment. "Out, now." The man blinked, his glass of scotch halfway to his lips. "What? Me? I'm a regular." "I don't care if you're the mayor," Sterling growled. "Get out of my restaurant. And you," he turned to the hostess, "collect your things. You're finished." The restaurant was paralyzed. The hostess began to stammer. "But sir, I was only following the image you wanted for the brand. You said we cater to a certain heritage." Mr. Sterling's face turned a deep shade of red. He turned back to Omar and his family. His hands were shaking. "Mr. Khan, please, I am so sorry. Would you join me in the private dining room? I have something I need to say, not just to you, but to everyone here." Omar hesitated. He wanted to leave this place of bitterness, but he saw a strange glimmer in the old man's eyes, not anger, but a profound, aching regret. He nodded slowly. As they walked toward the back, Mr. Sterling reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, weathered leather wallet. Inside was a secret he had kept for 40 years. You're about to find out the real reason behind the owner's sudden change of heart. In the center of the restaurant, Mr. Sterling stood on a small platform used for live jazz. He cleared his throat. "Most of you know me as Arthur Sterling," he began, his voice trembling. "You think I am a man of British pedigree, a protector of tradition. You think this restaurant is called The Heritage because of the silver and the wine." He looked at Omar's family, then at the shocked diners. 40 years ago, I arrived in this country on a boat. I had no money, no shoes, and a name that none of you would have been able to pronounce. My name was Ahmad Suleiman. I was a refugee, escaping a war that took everything from me. A collective gasp rippled through the room. I changed my name because I was tired of being refused service. I was tired of being looked at like a threat. I built this place as a fortress to hide my true self. I told my staff to keep the image clean because I was a coward. I was so afraid of losing what I built that I became the very person I used to run away from. But the most shocking part of his confession was yet to come. Wait, there's one more detail that will change how you see this entire family. Sterling, or Suleiman, stepped down and walked toward Omar. Tears were streaming down his face. "When I saw you standing there, holding your daughter's hand, I didn't see a stranger. I saw my own father. He stood in a foyer just like this in 1982, and I watched his spirit break when a waiter told him he didn't belong. I promised myself I'd never let that happen to me. But tonight, I realized I'm the one holding the door shut." He turned to the entire room. From this day forward, the heritage isn't about the past. It's about the truth. If you cannot sit at a table next to a man of faith, a man of color, or a man of a different name, then you are in the wrong restaurant. He looked at Omar, but as a brother. Omar looked at Zara. The tension in her shoulders had vanished. He looked at Lila, who was now smiling at the old man. Omar reached out and shook Suleiman's hand. "We'll stay," Omar said, "but only if you sit and eat with us. I think we have a lot of bridges to build." The story of the bistro confession went viral by the next morning. Someone had recorded the speech, but the real shock came a week later when the restaurant's sign was taken down. When the new one went up, it didn't say The Heritage. It said Suleiman and Khan. Omar hadn't just stayed for dinner. He had walked into a partnership. They transformed the bistro into a space that celebrated diversity, employing refugees and students of all backgrounds. However, as they were clearing out the old office, Omar found a dusty file in the back of the safe with his own father's name on it. It seems this encounter wasn't the first time their families had crossed paths. But that is a story for another day.